November 5th, 1906. The White House, Washington, D.C. President Theodore Roosevelt signs an executive order discharging 167 soldiers from the United States Army. All are black. None have been charged with crimes. None have faced courts-martial. None have received hearings. 6 received the Medal of Honor. 13 have served 20-plus years. Some are weeks from retirement with pensions. Roosevelt's order strips them of everything: rank, pay, pensions, honor. Their crime: refusing to name which soldiers allegedly shot up Brownsville, Texas, 2 months earlier. The problem: no evidence proves any soldier fired a shot. On August 13, 1906, someone fired rifles into buildings in Brownsville, Texas, around midnight. 1 bartender died. 1 police officer was wounded. Residents found spent military rifle cartridges in the streets. Brownsville's white citizens blamed soldiers from the 25th Infantry Regiment, stationed at Fort Brown just outside town. The soldiers denied involvement. No physical evidence connected any specific soldier to the shooting. No witnesses identified individual shooters in the darkness. Roosevelt didn't care. He demanded soldiers name the guilty parties. When the entire battalion refused, because they genuinely didn't know who was responsible, Roosevelt discharged all of them without honor. The Brownsville Affair destroyed 167 military careers in a single afternoon. It took 66 years for the Army to admit Roosevelt was wrong. Some discharged soldiers died before seeing their names cleared. This is the Brownsville Affair, the moment America's progressive president chose white townspeople's accusations over black soldiers' service records. If you want military history that shows how institutions failed their own troops, subscribe right now. Drop a comment with where you're watching from. This decision divided Roosevelt's own party and created legal precedent for decades. The 25th United States Infantry Regiment is one of the Army's most distinguished units when it arrives in Brownsville. Formed in 1869, the 25th is one of 4 segregated black regiments in the regular Army. The regiment serves in the Indian Wars, fights in Cuba during the Spanish-American War, and deploys to the Philippines during the insurrection. These are combat veterans, professional soldiers with decades of service. In July 1906, the Army transfers 3 companies of the 25th Infantry, Companies B, C, and D, from Fort Niobrara, Nebraska, to Fort Brown, Texas. The assignment is routine: garrison duty at a border post. The fort sits on the Rio Grande, just outside Brownsville. The battalion consists of approximately 167 enlisted men and their white officers. Major Charles Penrose commands the battalion. Company commanders are all white officers. NCOs and enlisted men are black. Brownsville in 1906 is a town of about 6,000 people, predominantly white and Hispanic. The town operates under strict racial segregation. Black soldiers are not welcome in most establishments. The town's white residents make this clear immediately. Within days of the regiment's arrival, tensions emerge. Soldiers report being refused service at restaurants, pushed off sidewalks, and threatened by townspeople. White residents complain about soldiers' presence, claiming they're arrogant and don't know their place. On August 12, 1906, a white woman named Natus Cowan claims a black soldier attempted to assault her near her home. She cannot identify the soldier. She provides no description beyond a colored man in uniform. No evidence supports her claim. No investigation occurs. The accusation inflames tensions. Brownsville's mayor, Frederick Coombe, and other town leaders demand the Army remove the 25th Infantry. Major Penrose refuses. His orders come from the War Department, not the town council. The town's hostility is explicit. Local newspaper, the Brownsville Daily Herald, publishes editorials demanding the soldiers' removal. One editorial states, "These men are a menace to our community. Their presence endangers our women and threatens our peace." Private John Holloman later describes the atmosphere. "We'd been stationed at posts across the West. We knew Jim Crow, but Brownsville was different. They didn't just dislike us, they wanted us gone, and they weren't hiding it." On the night of August 13th, something happens that gives Brownsville exactly what it wants. August 13th, 1906, Brownsville, Texas, shortly after midnight. Gunfire erupts in downtown Brownsville. Rifles crack in the darkness. Bullets strike buildings along Elizabeth Street, the town's main commercial district. Windows shatter. Wood splinters. The shooting lasts approximately 10 minutes. When silence returns, one man is dead. Frank Natus, a bartender. Lieutenant M.Y. Dominguez of the Brownsville Police is wounded in the arm. No other casualties occur, despite dozens of rounds fired. Citizens emerge cautiously. They find spent rifle cartridges in the street. Springfield .30-06 shells, the type used by Army rifles. Approximately 30 to 40 cartridges are recovered. All appear to be military issue. The town immediately blames soldiers from Fort Brown. Mayor Coombe and Police Captain William Kelly arrive at the scene around 1 a.m. They collect cartridges and examine bullet damage. Kelly later testifies, "The shells were military. The timing was suspicious. The fort is a quarter-mile away. Who else would have military rifles?" The logic seems obvious to Brownsville's citizens. Soldiers have the weapons. Soldiers have been unwelcome in town. Soldiers fired the shots. At Fort Brown, soldiers tell a different story. Major Penrose conducts an immediate roll call. All soldiers are present and accounted for. Rifles are inspected. All weapons are clean, recently oiled, showing no signs of recent firing. No ammunition is missing from the post's inventory. Penrose reports to his superiors, "All men present, all weapons accounted for. No evidence any soldier left post." The town doesn't believe him. Citizens form committees to investigate. They collect sworn statements from residents who claim to have seen soldiers in uniform firing rifles. The descriptions are vague. Colored men in uniform, with no specific identifying details. Over the following days, investigators from the Army Inspector General's office arrive. They interview townspeople, examine evidence, and inspect Fort Brown. Their investigation produces contradictions. The cartridges are military issue, but they show wear inconsistent with recent firing. Some have dents and scrapes, suggesting they were scattered on the ground, not freshly ejected from rifles. Witnesses claim they saw soldiers in uniform, but August nights in Texas are dark. The shooting occurred after midnight with no streetlights.
Identifying uniform details in those conditions would be nearly impossible. No soldier is identified specifically. Every witness statement describes colored soldiers generically. No names, no unit markings, no distinguishing features. The Army's ballistics examination is inconclusive. The cartridges are military, but thousands of Springfield rifles and millions of cartridges exist across Texas. Surplus military weapons are common among civilians. The cartridges prove nothing about who fired them. Despite these contradictions, Brownsville's white community demands action. Town leaders petition Texas Governor Samuel Lanham, who forwards their complaints to the War Department. Senator Charles Culberson of Texas raises the issue in Congress. President Roosevelt receives reports about the incident in late August. His initial response is to order a thorough investigation. He directs the Inspector General to determine exactly what happened. The investigation produces no definitive conclusion. Investigators cannot prove soldiers fired weapons. They also cannot prove soldiers didn't fire weapons. The evidence is circumstantial and contradictory.
Roosevelt makes a decision. If evidence cannot establish guilt or innocence, he'll demand soldiers identify the shooters themselves. He issues an ultimatum through the chain of command. Name the soldiers who fired weapons in Brownsville, or the entire battalion faces discharge. This is the story of 167 soldiers who lost everything because a town accused them without evidence, and a president believed the town. If you want military history that exposes institutional failures, subscribe right now. Drop a comment with where you're watching from. This case went all the way to the Supreme Court. Roosevelt's ultimatum reaches Fort Brown in October 1906. The message is clear. Identify the soldiers responsible for the Brownsville shooting, or every member of Companies B, C, and D will be dishonorably discharged without pension or benefits. Major Penrose assembles the battalion. He reads Roosevelt's order. He asks directly, "Who participated in the shooting?" No one responds. Penrose asks again, privately questioning NCOs and senior enlisted men. These are soldiers with 15, 20, 25 years of service. If they knew who was responsible, they'd say so to protect their careers and pensions. They don't know. They insist no soldiers left the post that night. First Sergeant Mingo Sanders, Company B, has 26 years of service. He's 3 years from retirement with full pension. His statement? "Sir, I was in the barracks that night. All my men were present. No one left. I have no names to give you because no one from this battalion fired those shots." The soldiers believe Roosevelt will recognize the truth when his investigators report back. They believe evidence will exonerate them. They believe the Army protects its own soldiers. They're wrong. Roosevelt reviews the investigative reports and makes his decision based on absence of information rather than presence of evidence. His logic: if soldiers won't name the guilty parties, they're covering for the guilty parties. Silence equals guilt. On November 4, 1906, Roosevelt issues Special Order No. 266. The order discharges 167 soldiers from Companies B, C, and D, 25th Infantry Regiment, without honor. The discharges are effective immediately. The order does not charge any soldier with a specific crime. It does not accuse anyone of firing weapons. It punishes the entire battalion
for failing to identify perpetrators of a crime the Army couldn't prove occurred. The discharged soldiers include 6 Medal of Honor recipients, 13 soldiers with 20-plus years of service, multiple first sergeants and senior NCOs, men weeks away from retirement eligibility, soldiers with commendations for valor in combat. Sergeant Jacob Frazier holds the Medal of Honor for action in Cuba during the Spanish-American War. His citation describes him saving wounded soldiers under fire. Roosevelt's order strips him of honor anyway. The discharges carry devastating consequences. Without honor discharge is equivalent to dishonorable discharge. Under federal law, dishonorably discharged soldiers lose
all veterans' benefits, any pension eligibility, regardless of years served, civil service employment eligibility, voting rights in many states, professional licensing in most states. A soldier 1 month from retirement with 25 years of service receives nothing. A decorated combat veteran loses all benefits earned through years of dangerous service. The discharged soldiers have no recourse. Roosevelt acts under executive authority as Commander-in-Chief. No appeals process exists. No court-martial reviews the decision. No hearing considers evidence. News of the discharges creates immediate controversy. Black newspapers across America denounce Roosevelt. The New York Age calls it the most glaring injustice committed by any president. Booker T. Washington, normally a Roosevelt supporter, privately urges reconsideration. White progressive allies question the decision. Senator Joseph Foraker of Ohio, a Republican like Roosevelt, demands Senate hearings. Foraker argues discharging soldiers without trial violates military justice and constitutional due process. Roosevelt defends his decision publicly. In messages to Congress and press statements, he argues the soldiers' refusal to cooperate proves their guilt. He claims protecting innocent townspeople justifies harsh action against potentially guilty soldiers. The Senate Military Affairs Committee holds hearings in early 1907. Discharged soldiers testify. Brownsville residents testify. Army investigators present findings. The hearings reveal the weakness of evidence against the soldiers. No witness identified specific individuals. No physical evidence conclusively linked soldiers to the shooting. The investigation produced suspicions, not proof. Senator Foraker introduces legislation to reinstate the soldiers. The bill fails. Roosevelt's Republican allies in the Senate block it, unwilling to contradict their party's president. The 167 discharged soldiers scatter across America. Most cannot find work. Potential employers see the dishonorable discharge and refuse to hire them. Some change their names. Some move to cities where no one knows their history. They file lawsuits challenging the discharges. Courts rule Roosevelt acted within executive authority. The discharges stand. The Brownsville Affair divides Roosevelt's political coalition and damages his reputation among Black Americans. Roosevelt, who cultivated an image as a progressive reformer and friend to Black Americans, loses credibility overnight. His 1901 dinner with Booker T. Washington at the White House was celebrated as symbolic progress. The Brownsville discharges reveal the limits of his progressivism. Black newspapers document the human cost. The Chicago Defender tracks discharged soldiers' struggles to find employment, support families, and rebuild lives. Many fall into poverty. Some die destitute. The 25th Infantry Regiment continues serving, but the Brownsville Affair casts a shadow over all black military service. White officers request transfers away from black units. Recruitment into black regiments drops. The message is clear. Black soldiers are expendable. In 1909, Roosevelt leaves office. William Howard Taft becomes president. Taft reviews the Brownsville case at Congress's urging, but declines to reverse Roosevelt's decision. Taft argues presidential actions cannot be undone by successor presidents without establishing dangerous precedent. Senator Foraker continues pushing for justice. He introduces multiple bills seeking reinstatement and back pay for discharged soldiers. All fail. The political will to challenge a popular ex-president doesn't exist. Through the 1910s and 1920s, discharged soldiers petition the Army for review. The War Department denies every petition. The Army's position: Roosevelt acted properly under his authority as Commander-in-Chief. No new evidence warrants reconsideration. World War I occurs. The 25th Infantry deploys to the Philippines, deliberately kept from European deployment. The Houston riot of 1917 reinforces institutional skepticism about black soldiers' reliability. Brownsville is cited as evidence black troops cannot be trusted. By 1930, many discharged Brownsville soldiers are elderly or dead. Those still alive continue seeking exoneration without success. In 1970, historian John Weaver publishes The Brownsville Raid, a detailed re-examination of evidence. Weaver's research reveals cartridges found in Brownsville showed wear patterns inconsistent with immediate firing. Several Brownsville residents had financial or political motives to remove the fort. No soldier ever confessed, even decades later when they had nothing to lose. The Army's investigation was rushed and concluded based on pressure, not evidence. Weaver's book creates renewed interest. Congressman Augustus Hawkins of California introduces legislation requesting Army review. The Department of Defense agrees to re-examine the case. In 1972, the Army completes its review. The findings: the discharge of 167 soldiers without trial or specific charges violated military justice principles. While we cannot determine with certainty whether any soldiers participated in the Brownsville shooting, the collective punishment imposed was unjust and excessive. On September 28, 1972, 66 years after Roosevelt's order, the Army changes the discharges from without honor to honorable. The only surviving member of the 167 discharged soldiers is Dorsey Willis, age 86. Willis receives a telegram informing him his discharge status has been corrected. He receives a formal honorable discharge certificate. He becomes eligible for a pension based on his years of service before 1906. Willis lives until 1977. He receives 5 years of pension payments, compensation for losing 66 years of benefits. The other 166 soldiers received nothing. They died before exoneration, some in poverty, all carrying the stigma of dishonorable discharge. The Brownsville Affair remains the largest summary dismissal of U.S. military personnel without trial in American history. Roosevelt never publicly reconsidered his decision. In his autobiography, published in 1913, he defends the discharges. I had no choice but to protect the innocent citizens of Brownsville. The soldiers' refusal to cooperate left me no alternative. Historians debate whether Roosevelt acted from racial prejudice or political calculation. Texas was crucial for Republican prospects. Brownsville's white citizens were voters. Black soldiers were not. Most couldn't vote under Jim Crow laws. The case established precedent that presidential authority as commander-in-chief allows summary dismissal of military personnel without trial. This precedent was cited in later cases involving dismissals during McCarthyism in the 1950s. Legal scholars note the Brownsville discharges occurred before modern military justice reforms. The Uniform Code of Military Justice, established in 1950, creates protections against arbitrary dismissal. Similar mass punishment today would violate UCMJ provisions. The 25th Infantry Regiment served until 1957, when it was inactivated during post-Korean War reorganization. The regiment's service included World War II campaigns in the Pacific. It never returned to Texas. Fort Brown closed as an active military installation in 1946. The site is now part of the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley. A historical marker notes the post's history, but makes no mention of the Brownsville Affair. In 2022, descendants of discharged soldiers petitioned Congress for formal presidential apology and reparations. The petition argues the 1972 discharge corrections acknowledged injustice, but provided no compensation for destroyed lives and lost benefits. As of 2024, no president has issued an apology for Roosevelt's action. The Pentagon's position: the 1972 discharge corrections represent sufficient remedy for an event occurring 118 years ago. This is the Brownsville Affair. 167 soldiers discharged without trial based on a town's accusations and a president's order. It took 66 years to correct the records. Only one soldier lived to see his name cleared.